If your business is struggling or stuck, it's likely because one of 5 key systems is failing. These are the 5 to thrive, non-negotiable systems that make the difference between growing and going under. And now, with AI changing everything, these 5 are becoming automatable. So the businesses that get this right now will get ahead and stay ahead. At Vivix, we use this framework to diagnose where a business is faltering so we can give it the medicine it needs to conquer the world again. And this isn't some revolutionary new theory. It's just the same framework that's guided every moneymaker for decades. I've seen it in my own career as an entrepreneur. 13 years, multiple businesses, multiple industries. When all 5 of these were healthy, I thrived. When one slipped, everything slipped. Let's start by giving you a brief overview of the 5 to thrive and why it's so pivotal before diving a little deeper into each one of these dimensions and how to ensure that they're operating at a high enough standard. Most founders start their journeys by solving a problem, or at least envisioning the solution to a problem. This idea tends to become the basis for your whole enterprise. It's what the whole business is based off of, and it's the first and most essential piece to the 5 to thrive, the core offer. Every single business has a prominent core offer. Five Guys, they want to sell you burgers and fries. Michael's wants to sell you arts and crafts. Businesses make it abundantly clear what their offer is before you walk in the door. Like, I've never been to Golf Galaxy, but it's pretty obvious what their core offer is. It's whatever you're trying to sell, whether product or service. Importantly, it doesn't have to be the only thing you're selling, but we'll talk a lot more about that when we dive deep into this concept of the core offer. Because it's a literal prerequisite to having an operational business, the core offer becomes the centerpiece in most aspiring entrepreneurs' heads. And rightfully so. I mean, it's the business's purpose for existing. But where I've noticed a lot of people getting it wrong is by assuming that if they just focus on this amazing idea of theirs, they'll end up blasting off. The truth is, this is you right here. And with your core offer, no matter how perfect and beautiful it is, you're still just here, getting wet if it ever happens to rain. What you want to do is you want to use the core offer, as the roof over your head, so you're protected when the storms inevitably pass by. But this won't just stay floating here. You'll need some support, which is where these other 4 key pillars slot in, to give you some stability when building out your structure. These other 4 pillars make up the rest of the 5 to thrive, and they're like the beams in your home, giving the whole thing structure and strength to withstand pressure. These 4 ancillary pillars are marketing, sales, accounting, and human resources. Now, like I said before, this isn't groundbreaking. These are fundamental, foundational concepts that every business needs. And every business that survives and thrives over time does so because they're operating all of the 5 to thrive at a high level. Now, importantly, not having one doesn't automatically translate to collapse or failure. As a matter of fact, it's still sort of possible to rearrange these so that you've got just 3 pillars holding up the core offer, or maybe even as little as 2 pillars. The problem here is that the less pillars you have, the more weak points you have, and the greater probability that a storm will end up collapsing your whole structure over time. Meanwhile, if you maintain these 4 pillars, you'll be better equipped to handle whatever storm happens to be rolling by that year. So let's touch on each of the 4 pillars to understand how, combined with your core offer, they contribute to the whole story. Let's say you're Eddie Gates, circa 2013, and you just started your first business, a tutoring business, and you've decided to focus exclusively on making sure you have the best tutoring system in the universe for raising SAT and ACT scores. Now, that's a solid core offer, but like we talked about, that's not enough, which is why young Eddie struggled so much to build out this business. You see, the first pillar is marketing, which handles brand recognition and lead generation. I could have been the greatest teacher on God's green earth, But what good would it have done if nobody knew that I existed? I cannot help students who don't know who I am. So the first thing that needs to happen is I need to get the word out that I've got an incredible system for raising SAT and ACT scores to generate interest in my business so that I can get people reaching out who are in my target audience and want to spend money to receive my services. But marketing by itself won't be enough to get us over the finish line. A great offer combined with marketing is still a dead business because marketing doesn't put cash in the bank. Sales does. Sales is the process of taking interested parties, what we call leads, and addressing whatever objections they may have until the point where they eventually feel comfortable enough to take the plunge and give your business money for its product or service. Marketing creates leads, sales creates customers. So in my tutoring business, even if I invest in a great ad campaign, people will still need to be convinced to buy my service. So I need to have some sort of strategy that I can rely on that persuades people from my core audience to give me a shot. Now, if I've got a phenomenal core offer, a good marketing apparatus, and good sales strategy, then I should be pretty good to go, right? Sort of. This is the house on two pillars. And as we saw, it's still possible to easily knock it down because we're missing number 3, which is accounting. Good marketing, sales, and core offers will begin the cash flow process and get your business to a place where it can legitimize. But I guarantee you that if you don't understand the accounting, which is to say the financial management behind your business, you will squander whatever profits you could have otherwise had. In my tutoring business, this would mean that I have paying customers, but because I don't understand the numbers behind my business, I overspend on useless crap, and I don't realize that I'm wasting money until it's far too late. Money without limitations will always find its way out of your bank account, guaranteed. Accounting is simply the process of putting limitations on your money so that it only goes where you want it to go. So now you've got 3 pillars, marketing, sales, and accounting, all holding up your core offer. The structure is decently sound, but it still has some weak points that could bring it down. And it's missing arguably the most critical piece to growth: human resources. In a business, human resources is what we would define as everything governing the hiring and firing of employees, instilling a desirable company culture, organizing information and infrastructure, and maintaining legal compliance. The way you can think about it is that if my tutoring business has phenomenal marketing, sales, and accounting to go along with a great core offer, I'm still just a glorified freelancer. I'm just Eddie Gates the tutor, not Eddie the business owner. The jump from being a great tutor to a great entrepreneur requires a team. And the building of that team and everything that comes with it is what human resources handles. In a nutshell, these are the 5 to thrive: marketing, sales, core offer, accounting, and human resources. Every single successful business has all of these firing on all cylinders in order to maintain their success, even if unintentionally so. For example, I've seen other tradesmen, like landscapers, who have been in business for 20 plus years and are doing great for themselves, but they have no marketing department and their business owners don't know diddly squat about accounting or bookkeeping. So how do these people get by? They outsource the marketing to another company and they hire accountants to handle the books. But you'll note with this example that even if the business itself refuses to understand its own marketing and accounting, someone has to. The pillars are still there, they're just not internal. They're external, but you still need them. And if you didn't have them, you wouldn't be in business for 20 plus years. Every business needs all 5. Now, how do we know whether or not each of the 5 to thrive are running well in our own businesses? And how do we fix it if they're not? Let's take each of the 5 in turn to answer those questions. First, let's lay out the vision behind marketing. As previously stated, marketing is the act of letting people know that your business actually exists. Now, That is a very serious oversimplification, so keep in mind that you can dive very deep into anything I bring up here today. So much so that there are master marketers out there who have spent entire careers, like we're talking 30, 40 years in this one field and are still learning more about it. That applies to all of these segments, by the way. But with that little side note said, let's get a little more clarity on what a functional marketing apparatus looks like inside of your business. At its most broad, functional marketing generates consistent, qualified leads for your business. It's the answer to the question, where is my next customer going to come from? And you want as many leads as possible pouring into your business. As Alex Hormozy is frequently quoted, he says, volume negates luck.
Volume negates luck.
With enough leads, your business can set itself up correctly for the long run. Now, there are 4 basic categories of lead generation which exist, of which most businesses only excel in 1 or 2 categories, which is okay, by the way. The point is not necessarily to have all 4 running in parallel off rip, but rather to implement each category chronologically, mastering one prior to moving on to another. The 4 categories that you want to explore for lead generation are magnets. Now, this is lead generation through pull-based tactics. You want to make them come to you, attracting people via your personality, your value, your expertise, etc. It's increasingly becoming the primary lead generator as social media kind of takes over the world. Now, here's a few different magnets, of which the biggest subcategory by far is this one right here, organic content generation. Next is scouting. Now, this is outbound, proactive lead generation. You go to them, you go get them. This is identifying ideal lead candidates and initiating contact manually or through automation. This is the one with cold calls, cold emails, cold DMing, cold everything. It means that you're reaching out directly to strangers with a pitch. It's also the one where you get shot down like 99.9% of the time, which is why so many people try to avoid doing it. But it's also the one with the most potential for growth in most early stage businesses because it's so cheap compared to some of the other options out there. Third is signal boosting. This is paid or sponsored methods to get your message in front of a lot of eyeballs quickly. It's pay to amplify, and it's the one you most associate with larger companies. TV commercials, Google ads, influencer marketing, paid promotion, all of that's in here. And the reason you mostly associate it with big business is because bigger businesses tend to be the only ones who can afford to do this both consistently and reliably to accrue the benefit. McDonald's, for instance, spends about $4.5 billion per year on marketing, mostly in this category. It works, but it'll cost you. Lastly, we have building bridges. This is partnership-driven growth. You leverage or borrow trust by collaborating with people who already have access to your ideal customer. It's tapping into other people's audiences. This is where affiliate programs, strategic alliances, resellers and commission agents, and networking groups all live. It's also the most common form of marketing that small or struggling businesses use because it's the category that contains word of mouth. Lots of businesses try to live purely off of word of mouth. So that's the basic vision. You get the word out there using one or more of these 4 marketing methods. You tackle one at a time. Your business should be doing this intentionally, or at least hire a third party to generate results. Or better yet, both. Now let's quickly tackle importance. What's actually at stake here? Well, if you don't intentionally market your business, then your only business will come from word of mouth, a notoriously volatile method of producing leads because you have zero control over it. You can maybe incentivize referrals by offering a discount or free service or something similar when people tell other people about you, but you are still relying on other people to put you out there with no initiated action on your part. And, People will refer you if they think your product or service is actually any good, but they'll refer you whenever they feel like it, even when they're incentivized. This means that the core question, where is my next customer going to come from, will only ever have the answer, I don't know. It's just not a smart strategy. People will not really know that your business exists. They won't contact you, and eventually your source of revenue dries up, forcing you to either start marketing finally or close the business. It is that serious, and it is the first thing that we're tackling in the 5 to Thrive because it is the first step in any business. Most people assume that the first step is making the core offer as good as possible, but that's actually nonsense. White Castle still exists. Their burgers suck, but they still exist. Your core offer can be mediocre or even bad, and you can still have a surviving business so long as your marketing is on point. Think about that. So you're watching this and you're thinking, well, I want to make sure my business's marketing is actually fulfilling the vision. How do we do that? Well, when in doubt, copy the big dogs. What do the biggest companies do to ensure that their marketing apparatus is still humming correctly? Here are 5 action steps that you can take right now. Number 1, define your audience. You are not selling air. You're probably not selling water. And even if you are, believe it or not everyone wants your product. Figure out who actually needs your product. Not simply that they want it, but that they need it desperately. Identify who needs what you're selling most desperately and start there. Those should be your customers. Those should be your first customers. Number 2, refine the messaging. What are you actually saying? You should be able to clearly define your customer's pain and exactly how your solution alleviates or eliminates that pain. If your customer's pain point, for example, is that they're fat, you need to understand the psychology behind that. You need to go much deeper. You need to think about, okay, they're fat, but it's now it's hard to find love. You feel bad all day long. You're constantly disappointed in yourself. All right. And then when you talk about the new gym program, the training program that you're selling, you want to say that it guarantees that you'll lose 20 pounds in 45 days, which will make you more confident, more attractive. And once you do it, you'll believe that you can achieve hard things. Boom. Clearly defined pain, clearly defined solutions. The more clear, the better. Number 3, pick a lane. Rewatch the 4 categories of marketing that we just finished. Take a look at the list of different marketing channels that you could start literally today if you wanted to. And then pick a category, pick a specific method, and just decide to get started. When? Like now. Like, do it before you finish this video. As soon as I finish giving you the breakdown, go try something out. Film some content. Send a cold DM. Buy Google ads. Reach out to potential affiliates. Do something. Don't worry, I'll still be here when you get back. Number 4, experiment and master. Marketing is not something that you will get on your first attempt. Stop expecting a master's result from an apprentice's strategy. You need to earn the result you're looking for by experimenting endlessly. If you send a cold DM and you get a no response, that tells you absolutely nothing. You need to send like 200 cold DMs with the same exact messaging. And then you need to do it again tomorrow. And then again the next day. And probably for the next week. Then once you've done it 1,000 to 2,000 times, you can understand the data behind how many people responded and how many of those people who responded actually became leads. If 1,000 to 2,000 times doesn't do it, do another 2,000 and then more and more until it works. Now, listen, this is a very key point. Marketing always works. If you cold DM enough people, someone will be interested. The question is, how many people do you need to go through in order to land that one lead? After you find that out, it's just a numbers game from there. Hire someone like a VA to send out DMs all day long. And based on the metrics that you found through your experimentation, You can then understand about how many leads you'll receive on any given week, give or take a small margin of error. That's mastery. Number 5, consistency and tracking. Open a spreadsheet, or if you're too scared of spreadsheets, open a note. Just keep track of your statistics. How many people have you reached out to? How many people have responded? How much time it took to reach out? What message you used? Just track it all. Build a database that you can use for your next iteration. And that's it. That's what you do to get marketing up and running. If your problem is that there's an overwhelming amount of information out there about how to do content creation, or how to manage Google ads, or how to do cold calling correctly, listen, you're just doing it wrong. You're trying to use information as an excuse to not get started. Just go do it. Let experience be your teacher. Now let's talk about the most common mistakes that founders make when it comes to marketing. I'm not going to go too in depth in this video, but you'll still get the point.
I get a lot of referrals, so I don't need to do any marketing.
Okay, we've already talked about this one. If your business is running solely on word of mouth and you haven't hired someone to do marketing for you, your business will either force you to begin marketing or it will just die. Do some marketing.
Of course I do marketing. My marketing is social media.
Content creation is huge nowadays, thanks to Gen Z coming up and being made of mostly aspiring YouTubers. Doing social media, however, is not always the same thing as marketing. Make sure your message is clear. Make sure your audience cares about the message. Make sure that there are some calls to action. Otherwise, you're not marketing. You're just trying and possibly failing to become an influencer.
My product or service is for everyone. Anyone would want this.
Go back to step 1 of the breakdown. If your messaging is so broad that you're trying to hit everyone, you'll actually end up hitting no one. Be as specific as possible about your audience so they can resonate with the messaging.
I am marketing. I'm marketing all the wonderful things about my product or service.
Here's the hard truth. Nobody cares about all your features in a vacuum. The only reason that a person would care is if that feature is specifically tied to a pain that you're eliminating or a result that you're achieving for them. Don't ever forget that your customer is the main character, not your business. You are part of their story, not the other way around. Stop bragging about your product and start communicating about how this product makes your customer's life better. Remember, marketing dies when it stops being customer-centric. Focus on the customer and everything else gets easier from there.
1, 2, 3, come on, let's go. Waste no time, let's hit the show. If you want a place, I'd let the be. I do my best right here, right now.
Now let's talk nuts and bolts of what it's going to take to get a marketing apparatus up and running. First of all, you cannot do everything. Don't say, I'm going to make content, do 200 cold calls, and manage some Facebook ads today. Don't do that unless you've already created systems to manage those things and have people that can help you captain each of those ships. If you are getting started, just pick one thing and then focus on that incessantly. In terms of costs, you have 2 big metrics, time and money. Now, magnets will have mostly time costs. It shouldn't cost you any money to get started on social media. Every platform is free and free to post on. You have a phone that you're probably watching this on right now. Do not spend money on getting fancy equipment or editing software. Use your phone and whatever editing software your computer came with. Don't worry about any of that other stuff right now. Focus on the following. How do I make something that my potential customers will want to pay attention to? Scouting will have heavy time costs and moderate money costs. And that's because I really don't recommend you spending your time actually doing all the cold DMs or cold emails or whatever other outbound. Not yourself, anyways. You should probably hire a virtual assistant who can handle that all day long for relatively cheap daily rates. Your time should mostly be spent collecting and analyzing data from that, and of course, from serving whatever incoming leads come from this. Signal boosting will be the most financially heavy. I do not suggest you start here unless you have a sizable marketing budget to start with. In order to see results, you often need to start by spending hundreds of dollars per day. And plenty of people shoot into thousands of dollars per day. So you really want to ensure that your business can handle it prior to jumping into this arena. Especially because this kind of advertising really only works at scale. If you only spend $500 on these paid ads, you probably won't see a return at all. And you'll falsely believe that this doesn't even work. It does, you just need to spend more than you think in order to get it to work. Building bridges is mostly time heavy. The first thing you need to do is understand your business model well enough to understand how much money you should pay someone else who's going to land a customer for you. Then you want to build a referral strategy off of that, and then you want to start reaching out to people who already have an audience, see if anyone's interested in teaming up. This one is the most intellectual in nature because every single entity that you reach out to will want something different in return for sharing you with their audience. So you need to be able to negotiate a win-win scenario where you gain customers and they gain something that they want too.
I do it all to get that power. Put in the time, put in the hours till I reach the top.
Remember that AI exists.
I'm as primitive right now as I'll ever be.
That is to say, AI will advance, get better and better, and will eventually take over the world and become our supreme overlords. Before that though, let's talk about how you can use AI today to make marketing even easier. If you wanted to generate a bunch of ads or content back in the day, you had to just be very prolific and very creative. Nowadays, just talk to ChatGPT and it can help you come up with an abundance of content ideas, script writing, copy outlines, a whole bunch of stuff. Don't destroy your brain making up all this stuff on your own. Tell ChatGPT, hey, I run this kind of business, help me with ideas on content to make, or help me with what my cold DM should say, or help me figure out who to target for affiliate partnerships. It can unlock your brain if you just let it. Lots of website builders now just use AI to either build out or enhance their landing pages. So look out for that. You can feed AI data from your marketing campaigns and it will analyze the response rate and it'll probably be able to give you tailored recommendations based on what it's seeing inside of the data. Don't make your life harder than it has to be. Use AI to help you succeed. Next up in our 5 to Thrive is sales. Now, the vision with sales is to turn all the leads that you're generating from successful marketing into actual paying customers. Remember that transactions will generally only happen when the perceived value you're delivering as a business exceeds the price that you're charging for your product or service. Therefore, sales tends to be the process of imparting value onto the leads until they've received enough value through information, other products, or services to feel comfortable and confident giving you their money. In a more practical sense, sales is the ability to build relationships and trust. It's interacting with people on a daily basis and continuing to foster and nurture these relationships even beyond the initial sale. And that's because the best businesses know that relying on one-time buyers is an almost assured way to destroy your marketing apparatus. Usually, the only way to make the investment into marketing pay off is by obtaining repeat customers. That means that your sales system doesn't end when someone purchases your product or service. It's ongoing indefinitely. And that makes sense when you think about it. Imagine if Starbucks only cared about getting one-time customers. They would sell you a cup of coffee for $6 and then just never see you again. And how exactly would they stay in business if they only made $6 per customer in revenue? That math just does not ever work out. But if you focus on repeat customers, like Starbucks does, you'll see that they have customers who pay them $6 per day, 300 days out of the year for 20 years straight. If you do the math, those customers are worth $36,000 in revenue and probably around $10,000 to $15,000 in gross profits. That is what makes it worth it for them to run these giant ad campaigns. Each customer is worth 5 figures to them. Sales is basically broken up into 2 major segments, each requiring different skill sets. Number 1, the pre-sale. Building trust to land the initial sale is its own unique problem for every single business. And then number 2, the post-sale. After you've officially gained a new customer, it takes serious strategy to maintain them. And that post-sale is normally where companies gain the ability to scale. And that's the basic vision for sales. You nurture leads to the point of sale at better and better conversion rates, and then you try to keep those customers for life if at all possible. Listen, handling sales is completely fundamental. There's no question about it. It is potentially the most important of the 5 to thrive, rising above even marketing, rising above even the core offer itself. And that's because a business that makes sales can still call itself a business even with weak marketing and bad offers. However, a business without sales is no longer a business. It's just a hobby. Sales is literally what makes your venture a business in the first place. I think that's enough said.
Tell me who you wanna be. We can always start to believe. Listen to your...
The conversation around sales and marketing often has them both getting clumped together because of how much overlap there is in the skills necessary to execute both functions. For instance, both sales and marketing require expertise in psychology, above average charisma, effective communication, prolific creativity, absurd amounts of patience, and the ability to quickly brush off rejection, just to name a few. Good marketers can often become good salesmen, and vice versa. Now, the reason that I'm emphasizing this here is to stress that while they are truly separate functions, they should absolutely be working closely together. By communicating with each other and consuming each other's data, they can often further optimize their role. Okay, now that being said, here's the step-by-step for how sales should operate in any business. First up, qualify the lead. Someone's job should be making sure the lead is worth pursuing, and in my opinion, that would be the salesperson. Now, when generating leads, it is simply impossible to only have good leads. Plenty of bad ones will make it through. For instance, if you own a pet grooming business, you might receive a lead who's looking to get a human haircut, and they contacted you without knowing you're for pets. Like, seriously, that kind of stuff happens all the time. So make sure the lead is actually legitimate, and then you can continue. Step 2, track again. You have to become a fiend for entering and tracking data and follow-ups if you're going to seriously engage with sales. This includes finding or creating a good CRM that doesn't let leads fall through the cracks. Plenty of people will naturally say no to your sales pitch. You do not need to amplify that number with a horrible follow-up game. Obviously, this is also where you track conversions, which is one of the most important metrics in the business. Third, build trust. For some customers, this process is huge and lengthy. For others, it's a breeze. As a business owner, you should always prepare for the former and be happy when you get the latter. Making the first sale will require building trust through ample communication as well as the imparting of value, always incentivizing that first purchase whenever possible. This is also the step where you handle objections and do all of your persuasion. It's what most people think of when they think of sales. Number 4, execute the first sale. This is the beginning of the framework that separates companies with good sales from those without. You should have someone holding the hand of the customer during that initial sales process through to the delivery and the fulfillment of their product or service. It sounds like overkill, but this is to ensure that the offer you've given them has lived up to their expectation and to mitigate any problems that do come up during that process. It is very easy to lose the trust of a customer at this point if you suddenly go radio silent now that you have their money. The best strategy is to stay most active during this phase of the process. Bigger companies do this through customer service, which most people don't think of as part of sales, but it is because it prevents returns and lowers the return rate, therefore increasing revenue, just the same as sales. Number 5, create an upsell strategy. After you spent all that time and effort and money to get this one customer, you should absolutely try to make more and more sales. The reason? Well, if you followed steps 1 through 3, you already have their trust and confidence, and you won't need to pay that premium anymore in order to make the next sale with that same person. Now, it's just about presenting them with another offer that fulfills the same need when they come to need it again, or maybe an adjacent need of theirs. This is thought of as more of a management function than a sales function because it involves leadership generating corollaries to the business's core offer, but salesmen can easily integrate these upsells during or after their first sale to make everyone even more money. Similar to step number 3, it's a part of sales that's often overlooked, usually to the detriment of the company. And that is what's needed for sales to be purring like a spoiled cat. This sort of sales process takes 6-figure businesses to 7 figures and beyond.
Heart, tell me that you understand, 'cause you are the one for me.
Let's tackle some of the biggest mistakes that businesses make when it comes to sales. By the way, lest you think I'm some sort of perfect corporate avatar or something, I think it's pertinent for me to mention that most of the mistakes that I bring up in these bottleneck sections are mistakes that I personally made for usually years at a time. In fact, everything I'm telling you in this video can be directly traced back to a previous failure of mine. Do not feel bad if you make these same mistakes. We've all had our knocks. I'm hoping this video helps you course correct, or better yet, if you're watching this early enough, avoid these mistakes altogether. Anyways, here are the mistakes.
I can sell to anyone and everyone.
This is another variation on the mistake of not clarifying your audience in the marketing section. In sales, it's believing that it's worth it to make a pitch to whoever's in front of you because that's what salespeople do. This is a giant waste of time and energy. Remember that your first step is qualifying the lead. And one of the key aspects of that is making sure that you're actually speaking with a decision maker. If you're not, move on. Only use the pitch on people who can actually buy from you.
Sales is a serious job for serious people.
Don't take yourself too seriously. You're gonna get rejected. A lot. This job has a way of humbling people, but more than that, you want to have some charisma about you if you're gonna make sales. So don't be so deathly serious. You want to know one of the biggest secrets to making sales? Make the customer laugh and you will make them buy.
I can convince them with logic.
This is my favorite one, and one that I held on to for much longer than I care to admit. Keep in mind that you're selling to human beings. The same human beings who frequently buy lottery tickets even though their value is negative, and that can actually be proven mathematically. Humans are not rational creatures. They are emotional. You should be looking to comfort, not convince. You should be looking to agree, not persuade. You should be looking to offer value, not make a sale. I could go on and on, but I think you get the point. Making sales is more art than science. Always keep that in mind. Let's now talk about the nuts and bolts of what it takes to get a good sales system up and running. The first thing that not many people seem to mention is that you need a founder who is so passionate about their product or service in order to succeed in the long run with your sales staff. And that is because the founder is typically the first salesperson in the business. But even when scaling, in order to attract and inspire good salespeople to bring into your team, you're going to need a founder who can sell the dream to them first. If the founder can convince the sales staff that they'll be spreading real, wholesome value into the world, then the sales staff will be able to turn around and convince anyone that their product or service is worth buying. That's because selling is not about price or pricing things differently. Notice how I haven't brought up price not even one time in this discussion. Selling is about having something you believe in and sharing it. You can't simulate that. Now, assuming that you do have that going for you, sales is very much about systems and documentation at the beginning. I know it's boring to talk about, but boring stuff done repetitively for years is what makes people millionaires. You should have salespeople who understand the marketing and messaging that's currently going on for your business. They should be aware of any promotions that are going on, and they should have watched or consumed any content or ads that your team creates so that they don't ever contradict any of it when they get a lead, and so that they can adopt a similar tone to what's being presented. Then you should have as much information about each potential lead as it's possible to get. Every conversation should have their key points logged into a CRM, and every single lead should have contact information saved for follow-ups and implementation into your core system. There should be automatic follow-up reminders and ways to rate leads based on how hot they are. There are a ton of CRMs out there, and honestly, if you're just getting started and you don't want to invest a ton of money into some sort of company-wide subscription, you could probably even start just using spreadsheets or notes. Just know that eventually you'll want to get that CRM, especially as you get more and more leads to track. This is really the only necessary cost I see within the sales process itself, other than the big one, commission. Salespeople, by and large, are incentivized by obtaining a small percentage of each sale or something similar to that. We could spend hours just talking about this topic, but my core recommendation boils down to this: have a commission structure, and definitely have one without a cap, and then hire people who get excited by that. As a business owner, make sure you make it worth it for salespeople to work as much as possible building your company. Remember that when they make money, so do you. And final note on implementation: make it someone's explicit responsibility to hold the customer's hand throughout the first sale to ensure proper fulfillment. It doesn't have to be the salesperson necessarily, but it does have to be someone. It ensures that the customer is primed for the next sales pitch that you want to try and make to them. Okay, I could spend all day on sales implementation, but it'll go beyond the scope of this video. So let's move along to Even though sales is a very human process, that does not mean we can't find a place for AI to help optimize that process. My very first suggestion for how to use AI is actually a bit more theoretical than concrete, but remember, sales is more art than science. In terms of training sales staff, it may be wise to actually engineer a few prompts to train an AI like ChatGPT or Gemini to answer like your potential clients, having different prompts for different styles of clients. Once you have them trained up, which really shouldn't take more than a few well-targeted messages, you can pass these chats off to your sales staff or to your incoming sales staff to see if they can sell the product or service. This is actually a phenomenal way to get the messaging perfect without risking bad customer interaction. And that's because the salesperson is getting the feedback from the AI, and they can even get feedback from supervisors or business owners afterwards by having the higher ups view the chats and then be able to give pointers or criticisms. It really is a great potential training ground with zero risk to real leads. You could also implement AI onto your website landing page or even on an app like WhatsApp as part of your business phone number to do the initial qualification of the lead, saving your sales staff a bit of time and you a bit of money so that you don't need to hire someone to take care of this aspect of qualifying leads. Lastly, AI can be used to spruce up follow-ups or written communications in general. When follow-up emails or text messages are needed, you can just advise AI and have them draft up the core of the message to make it as compelling as possible. Have your sales staff tweak it and then copy and paste it to send it out. That is leveraging AI to get more done for less money. And I can't stress this enough. I am not preaching about some hopeful future advancement. This is stuff AI is capable of today, right now. Just give it a shot. As I said before, your core offer is the whole reason your business even exists in the first place. It's the problem you chose to solve when you first started out. This is the thing that decides what industry you're in, who your audience is, how big your market is, who your competitors are. It is the biggest decision that you have as a business owner, selecting the right core offer. Now, you might think that core offers are too varied to be able to give guidance on, but you'd be wrong. There are still principles that universally apply to core offers. For example, there are really only two strategies that have a proven track record of success when it comes to what you can offer. A, be cheaper than everyone else, or B, differentiate from everyone else. So your first objective is to select one of those routes and optimize your operations in that direction. If you choose to be cheaper than everyone else, you have to have some inherent advantage, usually one that you've developed, like, a more efficient way to manufacture a product, or a cheaper source of raw materials, or access to inexpensive labor, or something like that. It is extremely hard to be successful with this sort of core offer because it takes a ton of resources to create a lasting competitive advantage when it comes to efficiency in production, manufacturing, or labor. And most people just don't have those kind of resources when starting off. A better bet is differentiation. There are lots of ways to be unique, but the main three options are: number one, do something better than your competitors. Number two, do something more than your competitors do. Or number three, do something new that your competitors don't do. Bonus points if you do all three. The other aspect of the vision for a core offer that most entrepreneurs miss is the marriage of these first three categories from the 5 to thrive. Your core offer does not exist in a vacuum. It actually needs to be crafted together with the marketing and the sales campaigns, not apart from it. Most people begin with an idea for a core offer and then they try to reverse engineer a marketing campaign around it from there. But it's actually a simultaneous process. The most successful companies out there, they change their core offers significantly to accommodate for marketing and sales. They don't try to market something unmarketable. They don't try to sell something unsellable. That'll make more sense in a second when we go over the breakdown for crafting your offer. For now, let's move on to getting the core offer right represents the first step towards being able to grow and succeed in business. One of the most common pitfalls of new entrepreneurs tends to be an over-reliance on a bad or flawed core offer. Now, whenever that happens in an existing company, the best way forward is usually to tweak or even wholesale change the core offer in the business to something that will allow you to hit your goals in business. So in terms of overall importance, I'd say this is extremely high because your choice of core offer, as well as how to present it, determines how far you can even go in business. You can have the other 4 pillars surrounding a mediocre core offer and still have a business, but it won't reach the heights that it would if you just fix this core offer first. Another way to think about it is that the other four pillars, accounting, marketing, sales, human resources, those determine your business's floor, which is important, but the core offer determines your ceiling, which is the upside that you started the business for in the first place. If your ceiling is making as much as you would at any 9 to 5, why on earth would you start the business in the first place? Change your core offer in the right ways, and your ceiling might not even exist anymore, which is to say, your business's potential will become unlimited.
You sure deserve a medal. Keep pushing forward, never settle. Never settle.
More than anything else, this is creative thought work. So that means that you as the business owner should not be pawning this off to anyone else. If you do need help brainstorming, so be it. But even then, you need to be the one taking the lead on this particular project and ensuring that it's your vision shining through here. The core offer determines the essential mission of the company, and the crafting of that mission should be the owner's role, or else you risk someone else turning it into their company instead of the one that you envisioned. This can turn into a whole political discussion that I'm really not going to get into in this video, but suffice it to say this. If you do not define your own business, someone else will. And someone else's definition will not normally comfortably align with your goals. So you should own this. That said, let's go over the procedure for developing a better core offer. Keep in mind that this breakdown assumes that you already have a core offer idea in mind to start off with. I cannot tell you what industry you should enter or what product or service you should sell. That is completely up to you, your unique personality, your unique experiences. My job here is to take what you already have and then refine it. Final note, since this is deep thought work, each step outlined here will be quite a bit lengthier than in the other sections of the business. Maybe take some notes or pause frequently to make sure that you really answer the questions that I'm going to be asking. Okay, here's the procedure.
Keep it 100, yeah. On your way to the next level. Next level. Next level. And while you're
Number 1, reset everything. Understand that the refinement of a core offer is largely a hypothetical thought experiment, and it requires a certain characteristic of ruthlessness when you're thinking through it. That does not mean that you need to be ruthless when you go to apply it, but in your thoughts, yeah, sure, fire everyone who's not worth it. Change everything that's not working, even if it seems unrealistic to do so. Give yourself permission to dream and to make those huge, large-scale changes if need be. I included this as step number 1 because I feel that we as business owners, we just tend to overcomplicate everything at the beginning of a new task. And we do that because we know how quickly things go wrong because of unforeseen complexity. I totally understand that urge, but when doing this, table it and just think simply and cleanly for a little while. I promise your thoughts aren't going to harm anyone. They're not going to reduce your bank account. Number 2, evaluate your market. Okay, the very first action step when it came to marketing was defining your audience. We're going to revisit that and now ask even more questions. First of all, are the people that you're targeting desperate for a solution to the problem you identified when you started the business? Desperate. If the answer to that question is yes, then you know what? Go ahead and skip to step number 4, timestamps in the description. If the answer to that question is no, these next steps are for you. The very first thing you need to do is find a problem that these people are desperate to solve and pivot to that solution for that problem instead. If you cannot think of anything adjacent to your original core offer that would offer I'm sorry to say it over and over again, but a desperately needed solution, then the next step is to change the audience entirely. Maybe the audience you have in mind doesn't desperately need your solution, but maybe someone else does. Brainstorm who, if anyone, needs what you're offering desperately. The key word there is desperation. It arises from pain. Your customer needs to feel deep, real pain as the result of the problem that you're solving. If you cannot find anyone who is desperate for your solution, then you're solving the wrong problem and probably need to go back to the drawing board entirely and make a more fundamental change to your core offer. Now, if you can come up with an audience that really truly needs your solution with that same desperation, name them, describe them in as much detail as possible, and start with the pain that they're feeling that your product or service solves. Then you can move on to step number 4. If you need to make a more fundamental change to your core offer, then let's talk about step number 3. Number 3, start from a universal human desire. Humans are funny creatures. We all think that we're special, unique snowflakes. But at our core, there are a ton of similarities that we all share. When it comes to building a successful business, you should be trying your hardest to tap into one of those similarities so that your potential market is as large as possible. Now think about it. The larger your market, the more potential customers you have. And the more customers you have, the bigger and more successful your business will be. That's just simple math. That's just simple logic. So what are some universal human desires that you could provide a solution to? Here on screen is a list of all the ones that I could think of. Now, you'll quickly notice when going through this list that just about every single commercial that you've ever seen.
My eyes show my strength. New advanced Genifique. Pioneering microbiome science, now for eyes.
Every billboard, every annoying, unskippable YouTube ad.
Here in my garage, just bought this new Lamborghini here. It's fun to drive up here in the Hollywood Hills.
Can be traced back to this list. And that is because these desires and the pains associated with them are evergreen. They never go out of style. Everyone is always trying to solve these problems, or at the very least, they're always wanting to solve these problems. If you start from this list, you will inevitably find a big pain that you can present a solution for that your audience will desperately desire. That way, you can be sure your business will be standing on a firm, evergreen foundation. I'll use this company, Vivix, as an example to guide you in understanding this. You see, when I started this company, I wanted to target a few of these desires on screen, but let's start from the one that's most obvious, the most prominent one that Vivix seeks to solve. And we'll simplify a bit here. The desire to achieve wealth or status. This is universal, it's evergreen. That desire arises from pains like scarcity, inferiority, lack of respect, financial insecurities, and comparison to others. Are those things painful? Hell yes. Are there a lot of people experiencing that pain? Another hell yes. So what's my solution? I've built Vivix to help people who want to become entrepreneurs finally turn their idea into a real income. We do that by essentially launching their business for them. We also help current entrepreneurs to refine each of these 5 pillars that we're talking about in this video to make sure that their business is actually ready to take off. This solution turns people who want to become entrepreneurs into real bona fide business owners. It turns struggling business owners into successful giants in their industries. So finally, we can tie it all together. Does my solution achieve people's desire? The answer is yes. If I actually deliver on my promises, then Vivix will allow people to achieve more wealth and status. This will alleviate and cure any pain stemming from scarcity, lack of respect, financial insecurities, etc. And finally, are there people who are desperate for that solution? Yes. I started this business because I was desperate for this solution myself. And I know that there's tons of people out there who would just love to start a business, would love to become business owners, but they don't know how to, or they're too scared, or whatever. Vivix presents a solution that those people are desperate for. Therefore, Vivix has a fundamentally good core offer. Now, all of that may have sounded like a huge advertisement for my company, and well, if you took it that way, sure, go to vivix.co and sign up to work with us. But in truth, I just wanted to illustrate the overarching point. Starting from any of these desires will allow you to say, I am solving a problem people desperately need a solution for. When you can say that, you have a good core offer at the base of your business, meaning that the rest of this framework will only propel you to 7 figures, 8 figures, or even beyond that. Number 4, brainstorm upsells and downsells. The point of the last 2 steps was to ensure that your core offer is easy to market and easy to sell, which makes running the rest of your business, well, easier. Now that that's out of the way, we go on to making sure that the lifetime value of each customer can justify the rest of your business, even at scale. The way to do this is through upselling and downselling. Now, this is another one of those topics that we could honestly spend hours working through, but to drastically oversimplify. An upsell is just an additional product or service that you offer to existing clientele beyond your core offer. Most people think of an upsell as a premium. Like when you're buying a car, you can upgrade to a car with a sunroof or to a car with better tires or a better entertainment system. All of these additional items, those are all upsells. A downsell, on the other hand, is a way to reduce the offer value just so that you can make the sale. If you're about to lose the sale, you might want to reduce the value so that you can capture some revenue out of that deal. For example, there might be a $20,000 version of a car that you can't afford. So the car dealership will try to downsell you with a $15,000 version that just has worse tires or a worse interior, whatever. But at least it's cheaper. That is a downsell. Our core offer can almost always be adapted to contain both. And you should think through what those options are and how to package them to make them as attractive as possible so that you can retain even more revenue with each customer. And that is the way oversimplified breakdown of the core offer. I could spend hours and hours going on this, but we got the rest of the video to get to, so onwards.
Making dreams come true. Sometimes you gotta let your body loose.
Here are some of the most frequent mistakes that new entrepreneurs make when it comes to their core offers.
I'm gonna make this brand new thing nobody else has ever made and sell that.
It is the height of arrogance to believe that you've made something truly original and new. Nobody on earth does that. Nobody in history has ever really done that. Everything is a copy. We all iterate on what already exists. It just so happens that some iterations become profound transformations that represent a difference in kind. But don't get it twisted. It's still just an iteration or a combination of something that came before it. You do not, in fact, have a new thing. Therefore, when you say, nobody has done this thing before, be extremely careful. What's much, much more likely is that someone has already tried what you're trying and has failed miserably to the point where their business no longer exists. That would be a cautionary tale, not a motivator. You should be wary of joining empty industries. There's usually a very good reason that they're empty. You want to know why there are so many restaurants and barbershops and convenience stores and furniture stores and et cetera, because those are all business models that work. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many of them.
I'm gonna have my core offer at a reasonable price. That's the ethical thing to do.
Normally, this is an excuse for not charging high prices. The problem is that low price things suck. That's why they're low priced. It is not, in fact, all that ethical to offer a product or service that fundamentally sucks. If your product cannot charge a high enough price to keep the business running, it is because your business is not imparting enough value onto customers to generate the requisite value in return. That is definitionally what it means to be in business. Make sure you're charging enough money, and then furthermore, make sure you're justifying what you charge because you are giving that much in value. That is what is actually ethical, in my opinion.
My product or service is that we do everything. We do it all, A to Z.
I actually like this mentality. It's closer to what wins out in most business contexts. However, it does fall prey to scope creep. What is scope creep? It's what happens when you don't put strict definitions and strict guidelines to exactly what your product will do or what your service includes. If you do not precisely outline those things, you will find yourself needing to include everything imaginable to keep your customer happy, which is a surefire way to lose money and burn down your business. Make sure your core offer is extremely well defined to avoid any of that scope creep. If you haven't yet started your business or are still on those first few steps, implementing this stuff will be extremely forgiving because you don't need to break anything first. You can just put in your new idea, frictionless. However, if you have an existing business and you're realizing now that you need to make some major critical changes to your core offer, it can become abundantly painful because there are already other systems and, more importantly, other people that are invested in and working on your old core offer, or at least the old version of it. I know I may ruffle some feathers here when I say this, but I am not the ultra-capitalist alpha male that's going to tell you to just fire everyone and get rid of everything that doesn't work. I'm a father now, and I wouldn't teach my children to treat other people like they're just cogs in a machine. My recommendation is to treat people with grace and gratitude for what they're already doing, and then to create a plan that, as quickly as possible, transitions to the way things need to be for everyone to be successful. Okay? I would be as open and transparent in my communication as possible about what is changing, why it's changing, and then I would open the door to that person's opinion as well as their agency as people to make their own decision about whether or not they would like to even continue under your new world order. Changing the core offer changes everything about your business, and it has unforeseen ripple effects that can be quite painful in the short term. However, if you do take the plunge and you make the needed changes, you'll be thankful that you did in the long term every single time.
Hands go up, stomp your feet. Let me see you kicking it back on the dance floor, on the dance floor. Feel the beat, electrified. Move your hips side to side on the dance floor, on the dance floor.
Now, you might think that your core offer is a place where AI can't help you, but you'd be wrong. AI is coming for your job too, Mr. Business Owner. And actually, right now, AI is just helping you out. And here's how. You can use AI to craft your pitch for your core offer. Your core offer needs to be short enough to be used in 10 to 15 seconds if necessary. I've found that using AI to craft this pitch is best because it has a great way of reducing words without necessarily reducing the impact. This 10 to 15 second pitch is critical to test your core offer in the real world, by the way. So you need to be able to quickly explain your core offer and effectively do so, or else you're overcomplicating the offer. You can also use AI in existing businesses to understand what kind of changes your core audience wants you to make to the offer. You could do things like feeding AI your most recent testimonials. You can get an easy to digest summary of what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and most importantly, what people would want to see you change. Oftentimes, testimonials leave hints about how to optimize your core offer to give even more value and raise your profits even higher, by the way. AI can help you tease out those hints. AI can also be used to evaluate your core offer using the metric I gave you in the breakdown. You can literally tell ChatGPT a lengthy description of your core offer and then ask, hey, is this a solution that people desperately want solved in response to a real pain that they feel? ChatGPT does a great job of delineating value on theoretical calls like this one. All right, let's confront the truth up front here. Accounting is unsexy. It is boring. It is uninteresting. It is like brushing your teeth. Nothing special at all. But just like brushing your teeth, if you skip it for long enough, you're going to be looking at a whole lot of disgusting decay instead of brilliant smiles. Accounting may be unglamorous, but it is the backbone of every single business. It is what manages the financials and allows everything to have a budget and therefore have every other function of the business be alive and active. The vision for accounting is simple. The business owner should deeply understand the accounting within his or her own company. Now, let me say that again for the entrepreneurs in the back who hire third-party accountants. The business owner should know their own accounting. If you hire an accountant, it should be because you just want to save yourself the time, not because you have no idea what you're doing yourself. You need to understand your books, and then you need to work those books. One thing people get wrong about accounting is thinking that it's all about logging past transactions. Good accountants don't just deal with the past, they also project future results, which, by the way, is a skill that plenty of big businesses pay millions of dollars for on a yearly basis. And yes, you can absolutely make accounting and the theories behind it absurdly difficult to interpret, but the basics behind accounting can be grasped by anyone. Even you. Yes, I see you. You're saying, I'm horrible at math and accounting is boring. Even you can get accounting down packed. Because the reality is that accounting doesn't require you to be good at math. Software calculates everything for you. Instead, accounting invites you to be disciplined and act as a detective most of the time. And you might think accounting is boring, but it actually shows you in real time how much money you're making and how much money you will make if you make certain decisions. I would say that's pretty exciting. As a matter of fact, I take back what I said earlier. Accounting is officially sexy.
Everyone told me the same damn thing.
Your business will fail without proper accounting. Full stop. Accounting is what allows you to make decisions on how to and when to spend your hard-earned profits and revenue. It can reveal problems in your pricing structure. It can let you know about bloat in your overhead. It can illuminate problems with your financing options. If your business is a car, accounting allows you to be the mechanic. It allows you to take it into the shop, find the problem, and fix it. Running a business without accounting is like fighting a grizzly bear, blindfolded, with your bare hands, covered in steak sauce. It just makes it impossible to win. Running your business is already hard enough. Do not make it harder by failing to understand your own books.
You all told me to escape from here.
Hopefully at this point, I've convinced you of how pivotal accounting is to running and understanding your business. Now, let's talk about some practical steps you can take to ensure that the accounting of your business is running the right way. Number one, learn the basics of accounting. Vibix offers a course called Accounting in the Real World, which teaches business owners the basics of accounting so that they can interpret their books and make correct decisions with their money. Even if you don't go with us, the first and most fundamental step is to learn all about accounting so that you can take control of your financial situation. Trust me, your business can be running even better if only you keep track of relatively simple numbers. If you want the quick and dirty primer to accounting so that you can literally start taking control of those finances today, then learn about these terms that are popping up here on the screen. There are tons of free resources online that will teach you all about the accounting equation, accrual accounting, balance sheets, and the income statement in whatever medium you prefer. You can find podcasts, YouTube videos, free PDFs, whatever. Just learn about those four things at a minimum and start applying it right away. Number two, move off of cash accounting immediately. Cash-based accounting is the idea of doing accounting via cash in, cash out. It's how most people who don't understand accounting handle their QuickBooks. You just log things when they happen. Cash-based accounting, however, can leave you blindsided by infrequent expenses and feeling like your business is literally living paycheck to paycheck, figuratively speaking. And it won't give you any accurate information on how much money you're making right now. Learn about accrual accounting and how to handle recurring transactions and how to log revenue when it's earned rather than when your money enters your bank account. I know for a lot of you, it'll seem like I'm kind of speaking a different language right now, but this isn't an accounting class, okay? Like I just said, if you need that, sign up at vivix.co. This is just advice on how to get your accounting to a stronger place in your business. Number 3, run a weekly analysis of your business. This is huge. Once you move off of cash accounting, you will have effectively cleaned up your books. When your books are clean, that means that you can get real-time information on the performance and key metrics within your business. At this point, accounting becomes extremely fun because it'll let you know how much money you're making. If you're not making any money, accounting can often give you the information necessary to course correct as well. At a minimum of once per week, I would suggest that you take a look at your big 3 financial statements to understand where you stand right now in your business. Those 3 financial statements are your balance sheet, your income statement, and your statement of cash flows. Those 3 together paint a really complete picture of where your business stands. By the way, lest I don't say enough about how important accounting is, keep in mind that every big company you have ever seen has teams of people who handle these last 2 steps in intense detail. And none of these companies ever are unhappy writing those giant checks to accounting firms because the information that they uncover is worth more than the millions that they usually pay to acquire that information. Really digest that point. Number 4, practice projections. Once your books are clean and you understand where your business stands because you're looking at those financial statements, it is time to budget and then to project. Now, projections is its own science that goes well beyond the scope of this video, but to drastically oversimplify, you need to attempt to understand how much revenue to expect coming in, how much money will come out, how much money will be left over, and therefore how much you're going to reinvest or take as your own profit. Doing that over and over again ensures that you have a financial plan that gets you closer and closer to your goals.
Because this ain't real life, and real life is short.
Now, there are tons of mistakes that people commonly make with accounting, but most of them would fly over your head if you don't understand accounting lingo. So here, I'm just going to focus on the common mistakes made by entrepreneurs and business owners who don't know how to do their own accounting.
I have a CPA who does my accounting once a year for taxes.
This is by far the most common mistake I see with small business owners and accounting. I'm glad you hired a CPA for your taxes, okay? Everyone should. But if you think that looking at your books and cleaning your books once a year, edited by someone who doesn't have any sort of interest or stake in your business, is the best way forward, all I can say is good luck. You need to be looking at your books constantly. What gets measured gets managed. Don't ever forget that.
I have an office person who does the bookkeeping.
Bookkeeping is not accounting. Bookkeeping is just logging invoices and receipts and cutting checks and entering expenses. All of these are totally essential, but it's just not enough, okay? It would be like saying, I'm gonna sell you a car, but then when I go to sell it to you, I just give you some tires. Sure, tires are essential, but where's the rest of the car? You need to do more than bookkeeping in your business if you want to hit the next level. And if you don't want someone else in control of your finances, you should make sure that it's you analyzing the accounting and not somebody else.
I don't have time to do all this accounting mumbo jumbo.
Nobody is telling you to spend all day logging stuff into a computer. That should absolutely be someone else's job. But crucially, you should know how to do an accountant's job in case you ever need to. And your primary role as a founder, as a business owner, is not any of these other things that you're thinking. It is to be a decision maker, okay? That is your primary role. Accounting forces decisions onto you in ways you wouldn't otherwise have expected. It does not take time to do accounting. All it takes is discipline, and a lot more importantly, it takes wisdom.
Is what they all said to me, so
Here's some practical advice for dealing with accounting in a small business setting. First of all, if your team is between 1 and 5 people, you probably need to be doing the accounting work yourself as the business owner. You should probably even handle your own bookkeeping at that stage, since you're probably not doing tons of transactions on a daily basis. Once your company exceeds your ability to handle the bookkeeping within an hour each day, it's time to hire someone whose job description will include bookkeeping. If you've learned about accounting and implemented those lessons like I asked, part of your training for them should include having them understand the core fundamentals of accrual-based accounting so that they don't mess up your books with cash-based accounting. Finally, if you're at the point in your business where you have departments in your business, even if there's only like 2 departments, you should absolutely clue in the heads of those departments on the accounting that explicitly affects them. You should always have at least monthly meetings discussing budgets, discussing profits, and discussing decisions that need to be made as a result of those.
I like to feel the fresh air on my skin, and I'd like to breathe, and I'd like to live like every day could be my last.
Accounting is one of those fields where I just wouldn't be surprised if AI largely automates the redundant tasks entirely within like a year or 2. For right now though, there are still quite a few ways that AI can help accelerate your accounting. For example, right now, you could upload receipts to any AI and ask it to categorize your expenses and produce a clean summary of your spending. This will avoid hours spent using spreadsheets and making formulas. Now, if you want an extra set of eyes taking a look at your financial statements, I found that AI can help you translate a lot of the information within those statements into plain English. For example, you can input a balance sheet from last week and then another balance sheet from this week, and then you can ask AI to tell you what changed between those 2 weeks and suggest why they might have changed, which you can then use to pinpoint information you need to analyze. You can even use AI to forecast for certain scenarios. If you feed it enough information from past and present financial reports, it will actually do a relatively good job of predicting growth, revenue, and profits over time. The accounting field is likely to be transformed by AI soon, so look out for that. You've made it to the final section of the 5 to Thrive framework. If you feel like this video has been valuable or helpful to you, nothing would make me happier than a comment telling me so. And also, this is our very first of many business videos that we have planned here for this channel. We are hoping to grow Vivix's community to at least 1 million entrepreneurs strong. And this is just the first step. If you want to dive even deeper into the world of business, please consider subscribing.
Yeah. Started out with a dream. Now look at us.
Okay, so we've arrived to the most often neglected part of having a successful, scalable business, and that is human resources. Everything we've gone over up until now is sufficient to own a nice, peaceful, small business. It'll pay the bills, it'll keep the lights on, but if you want to go to the moon, if you want to conquer the world, if you want to fly first class, if you want to meet your heroes, this is the missing ingredient. Human resources at its core is about assembling a team. And doing so in the right way will enable greatness because nobody in the whole history of humanity has ever been able to do it alone. Every single successful person from every single conceivable industry has had a team around them that enabled them to achieve their pinnacle. Everyone from Michael Jordan to President Abraham Lincoln to John Lennon, they all had a team. World-class talent by itself was not enough. Business giants like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, all of those people have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of employees. Once in a generation genius alone was not enough. If you're going to go anywhere with your business, you need a team to get you there. So the vision for human resources is to have systems and procedures that allow your business to easily do the following 4 core functions of human resources. Number 1, hire the right people into the right positions. Number 2, fire the wrong people who bring the company down. Number 3, instill a culture that inspires. And number 4, keep the company organized and legally compliant. Now, of course, this is much easier said than done, but it's what needs to be done if you ever want your business to grow beyond the small business phase.
What's a vision if you ain't turning that vision to reality? All you haters can stay mad at me.
Getting human resources right is what gives your business a chance to really change the world. The reality is that as a business owner, you cannot only focus on potential customers because really that's only half of the equation. You also have to sell your company to potential employees. And that's because your next employee unlocks your ability to even serve your next customer. But it goes even beyond that. I have personally been in the miserable position of owning a business that I grew to hate. It's the most taxing, stressful, annoying thing. I gained weight. I stayed up at night, anxious about the next day. I dreaded checking my emails. Life was just horrible. And the key reason behind having a business that I hated, I didn't have a culture worth joining. People weren't excited to join my business. It was just a job. And that attitude, it infected everything inside of the business, eventually getting to the point where I just had to shut it down entirely. As a general rule, and this applies to all of life, not just business, humans need growth or they'll die. We get accustomed to each successive mountaintop that we reach incredibly quickly. Being at one mountaintop only satisfies you for like a day and a half before you get bored and you begin seeking the next bigger mountain to climb. It's just the way we are. It's the way we were created. It's the way we're wired. If you want to drive a person crazy, just have them plateau at something they care about for a year or two. I guarantee they'll go crazy. We want to grow. Growth keeps us going, but stagnation causes misery. Bringing it back to business, this means that you need your business to constantly grow. It's just a part of our human condition. We need the growth. Human resources provides the avenue for that continual growth that you're yearning for. A lack of attention on this will eventually keep you stuck at a lower level, and take it from my own experience, that will drive you crazy.
From a kid to a man, from a man to a star, bike to a minivan to a supercar. Lights, let me see those hands, show me who you are. Dice, watching land, go and cop a new car.
This is yet another section where I need to start by stating this is a giant topic. It involves human psychology, management, team building, motivation and inspiration, understanding culture. We can't go over everything in depth here. That'll be for another video. For now, let's just go over a few of the first practical steps that you can take towards establishing a better human resources dimension to your business sooner than later. Number 1, start a cult. Yes, I mean it. You can't spell culture without cult. You as the founder, you need to believe in this core offer more than anyone else. It needs to be an unquenchable obsession of yours. If you want to make millions or tens of millions or beyond that, you need to look at your idea and say, man, this idea can change the world. And you can't say it timidly. And you can't say it without conviction. This has to be the true belief on your heart if you ever want to achieve greatness. But once you believe that, you'll realize that you have a whole lot in common with the leader of every cult ever. You're an evangelist for a new cult, your business. Now, obviously, I don't actually think you should go out and manipulate people into joining an unethical movement. That would be a cult, a real one, and that would be bad. I just want you to be so passionate about your idea that it infects those people around you. If you want other people to help you take this thing to the moon, you need them to be passionate, which they will only be passionate if you are yourself. And you'll need them to be passionate and to truly believe in this thing if you want to take it somewhere special. So if you want a phenomenal culture at your company one day, you as the founder need to be the first one to step into this mindset. The second thing that you can do is more practical. Once you've given yourself permission to dream big, you need to put pen to paper, all right? You need to describe your ideal culture. If you do not define your culture, the first 5 or 6 people who join your team will. And take it from my own experience, that may not be the best thing. Instead, you should define what you eventually want by answering the following questions. What adjectives describes the tone behind my business? When we become successful, what kinds of events will my business have for its employees? What kind of person is a leader in my business? What are his or her characteristics? Why do people want to work at my business? What kinds of benefits are there? What kinds of incentives? Who or what is the enemy? Our business is the hero, but who are we fighting? Number 2, create a hiring plan. Listen, I've started several small businesses in my life. I already know that your first 2 hires are probably your best friend and your cousin. It is what it is. That's what small business owners have to do at the beginning to get some help. However, you must remember step number 1 and adhere to it strictly. If you find that someone inside your company does not fit in with the culture you're trying to create, it will always be better to just let that person go. I promise you can find someone else. That said, depending on your core offer, you should have a very clear plan as to who your first 5 hires are going to be. You should know which positions they'll fill, what their pay rate is going to be, what benefits, if any, they'll earn, and most importantly, what their job description and title will be. With regards to hiring, you should always be a few steps ahead of the curve, so make sure to think through the following. Triggers. What event or outcome triggers the necessity of hiring another person? For example, this might be a certain number of customers, projects, or revenue that forces you to hire because otherwise you'll be incapable of doing everything yourself. Clearly define the triggers for when hiring should occur. Job title and description. Once you understand when you'll need help, you'll need to define what help is actually needed. This is incredibly difficult at the start because you'll have the urge to say that you need help with literally every aspect of your business. But that is your job as the founder. When you create a job, you want it to be as tightly defined as possible so that that person can specialize and master their craft. Job cost. A new job is ideally tied to some sort of outcome that directly impacts revenue in a small business. The increased revenue arising from the job is what can justify the creation of the job in the first place. You need to be realistic about how much excess revenue and profit this job can create for your company, and then work backwards to find how much you can realistically pay for this position. If you find that you can't pay within 20% of an industry standard rate, you're probably not truly at the place where that hire is necessary just yet. Ideal candidate. List out the skills and personality traits that would make someone an ideal candidate for this job. Thinking through these hires in advance, and especially writing all of this down, will keep you from building a company that you hate later on down the line. Number 3, invest in every relationship. Yes, this is a business, but it's also life. You will be spending an outsized portion of your life with these people. Ensure that you actually enjoy being around them and you enjoy their dynamic with each other. The best way to do this is to invest in these people. Train them relentlessly. Communicate constantly. Praise successes. Have grace with failures. If you want an employee to give back to the company, you need to give them a reason to. And the only reason they'll feel any reason to is because you took the time to treat them with care and respect. Now, we haven't even talked about firing or the organizational and legal aspect of human resources, but this is going to have to do for now. I'm not being exhaustive here. I'm just giving a preview. We'll have a whole human resources video one day.
High stakes, heavyweight shit. Came up from the bottom. Only flex flows if you got him. Problems came and forgot him. I'm on that stress-free shit. If I believe, then I can be it.
Mistakes are a dime a dozen when it comes to hiring people to join your team, but these are some highlights from my 13 years as an entrepreneur.
My cousin Joey would be perfect for that role.
It's not always such a bad decision to hire someone you already know to help you grow your business. After all, this is probably someone you trust more than a stranger, which is worth a lot at the beginning. However, if you're going to ever grow beyond the small business phase, you have to remember that hiring is about getting the right people in the right positions. This means that you first need to evaluate Cousin Joey and ensure that he's the right type of person. Does he fit in with the culture? Does he fit with any of the roles outlined in my hiring plan? If the answer is no, I should probably move on. Even if the answer is yes, the next part is ensuring he's in the right position. Maybe he'd be better suited in a sales role, but we have him in marketing. Those kinds of decisions slowly sink the business over time. You need to be careful when employing people you know.
This job isn't that important. I could get anyone to do this.
It takes a ton of work to get just 5 people to totally buy into your vision for the company. It is extremely hard to get good, loyal, joyful employees, but it's really easy to ruin it. One bad apple can easily spoil the bunch. You need to keep that in mind before hiring someone who will wreck your perfectly curated culture. Not just anyone should be able to walk into your business and do a job, no matter how trivial you may think that work is.
They're happy with their pay.
Remember how I started this section. Humans need growth, and employees are no different. You can pay someone $1 million a year. By next year, that's not going to sound impressive to them anymore, and they'll only be happy if they get 10% more. When creating your hiring plan, you need to account for that and make sure that the positions you hire can directly impact a company's growth trajectory. You should only hire people who alleviate bottlenecks in growth for the company. If your company isn't growing, you can't raise wages. And if you can't raise wages, you will eventually lose employees.
And I aim to be a star. Don't matter who you are or where you come from. Had them wanting more after one song. Every morning I wake up and I'm on some. Put the beat on repeat and get the rhymes done.
People are highly resistant to change. This means that if you did the earlier exercise and realized that you want a different company culture than the one you're instilling, the hard truth is that you'll likely need to change out the employees entirely. Your current employees are used to the current way of doing things. They don't want a new culture. That's not what they signed up for. So if you want to be able to instill your new culture and values, you'll eventually need to find a way to either convince them to adapt or just get them off the ship entirely. There's much more in the way of implementation, especially when it comes to organization and legal compliance, but we just don't have the time to talk about it in this video. It's already long enough. I will make another video about this one day.
Started out fun, now it's my life. Married to the game, they rapping my wife. To have and to hold, through sickness and death. At least I'm at the point I can write my own checks.
AI excels with tasks that require extensive, relatively unimportant writing, so human resources is actually a perfect fit for a few things. First, job postings, for example. Those can be outsourced entirely to AI to write. So long as you have your hiring plan, you can input that information into something like ChatGPT, and it will spit out a job posting that you can post directly to ZipRecruiter without much of a second thought. AI can also use this same information to create some onboarding templates to make it easier to train the new employees and to introduce them to the company policies and norms. You can even describe your process of doing certain repetitive tasks and have AI generate SOPs or standard operating procedures for you, which are hugely beneficial and evergreen for training and any new recruits. You can even enhance and accelerate training for new employees by having AI give quizzes, checklists, or simply giving pre-formulated trainings. This is a great spot for AI to help you run your business. Okay, I think I've gone on long enough now, don't you? In this video, we briefly touched on each of the 5 to thrive, the 5 systems that are non-negotiable when operating a successful business. It's hard to overstate just how dense this can get. I know this video is already pretty long, but we really only scratched the surface of most of the topics that we covered. But that's why Vivix is here. We want to help aspiring entrepreneurs turn ideas into income and help struggling business owners go from surviving over to thriving. And I hope I was able to accomplish a little bit of that mission today with this video. If you enjoyed it or got something out of it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you really want to make my day, drop a comment. We still haven't decided which of these topics to expand on and make the next video about, so if you have any suggestions or ideas, I'd love to hear them in the doobly-doo below. If you're interested in working with Vivix, visit vivix.co. We literally just started this business. At the time of this recording, it is day 5 of the business even being open, but I promise we're only going up from here. If you need help launching your business, try our Vivix Launch Lab, where we do legitimately everything that your business needs, like incorporate in your state, make your website, make your logo, and even land you your first customers. If you've got an existing business, try checking out some of our other offers, like our accounting course, the marketing campaigns that we do, the social media management, or the business support. Whatever your business needs, we are here for you. Anyways, I'm Eddie Gates. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace. Let's take each of the 5 in turn to answer those questions. Boom! Freaking shit out of my face.